The Baltimore Ravens offseason took a horrifying turn on Thursday as Justin Tucker finds himself in hot water following accusations of inappropriate behavior. We talk about that, the latest, the facts, and so much more coming up next on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here on this Friday edition, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every day. We're free and available for you on all podcasting platforms. In video form on YouTube, you can hit that like and subscribe button. In audio form, you can follow along and subscribe over there as well. We're a 5-day-a-week plus more daily Ravens show. So news, analysis, updates, and more. We have you covered with everything pertaining to the Baltimore Ravens. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Here with me today is Sam Njoku of the Ravens Talk podcast. And Sam, there's a big story that we're going to get into here pertaining to Justin Tucker. It was news that dropped on Thursday. We're going to get into those facts. But a situation that now the Ravens will have to answer for, the NFL will have to answer, and we've heard statements on account of Justin Tucker. We've heard it on account of the Ravens, on account of the NFL, and obviously a lot presented in an article from the Baltimore Banner, and we'll get into all that here coming up.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation. The Ravens, once again, find themselves in some off-season hot water. As you put it at the beginning of the show, it's tough, but depending on what happens with this, we'll see what the Ravens have to do. They're in the bind for sure this offseason with this, and I'm sure we'll touch on what that means for them moving forward. But yeah, this is definitely a tough situation for the Ravens.
It is. So the Baltimore Banner put out this article with accusations for Justin Tucker. I just want to read a little bit of that article, some excerpts from it so that we can understand the entire situation. We'll get into Justin Tucker's statement because not long after, Tucker released a lengthy statement on the accusations. The Ravens commented, the NFL commented. So let's first start off with the article from the Banner, and this is straight from that article, and there's a lot more in it. So if you want to know more on the situation that isn't covered here, we're going to get to a lot of it, but be sure to check out the article there. So Ravens kicker Justin Tucker engaged in inappropriate behavior allegedly at 4 high-end spas and wellness centers in the Baltimore region, according to 6 massage therapists, including a bunch of things that are put out in the article. Now, several of these therapists said that Tucker's behavior was so egregious that they actually ended the sessions early or actually refused to work on him again. And 2 of the spa's management has said they have banned him from returning. Now, the Banner started investigating after a tip they received on January 9th, and they spoke to those 6 massage therapists, and they recounted their troubling experiences. And this spanned from 2012 to 2016. That is the timeline. And apparently, according to the article, the women have said that they have long wanted to tell those stories. Now, none of the women that actually spoke to the Banner said they took these allegations to law enforcement, and there could have been certain criminal statutes that might have applied if the allegations were proven true, which there are different charges that could have happened. But when it comes to the statute of limitations, that is expired. And in any event, such cases are rarely prosecuted, according to that article. Now, depending on the outcome of the NFL's investigation, because that is going to be a separate thing that happens, Justin Tucker could be found in violation of the NFL rules, team rules, whatever it could be. And the league's personnel conduct policy clearly prohibits behavior that undermines and puts at risk the integrity of the NFL. Now, John Harbaugh was asked about Deshaun Watson. In that situation, the Ravens have had a zero tolerance policy towards off-field behavior, especially as egregious as this, allegedly. And again, took a pretty strong stance on the Deshaun Watson situation following his accusations that also were presented. Now, Justin Tucker, as I mentioned, released a statement, and it was a pretty lengthy one, and I do want to read it out. So we're gonna read the full thing here because I don't want to leave any stone unturned with actually what he said. Tucker reads, the allegations in the Baltimore Banner article about me are unequivocally false. Throughout my career as a professional athlete, I've always sought to conduct myself with the utmost professionalism. I've never been before accused of misconduct of any kind, and I've never been accused of acting inappropriately in front of a massage therapist or during a massage therapy session or during other body work. I've never received any complaints from a massage therapist. I've never been dismissed from a massage therapy or bodywork session, and have never been told that I was not welcome at any spa or other place of business. And accusing me of misconduct, the article takes iniquitous or ambiguous interactions and skews them so out of proportion they are no longer recognizable, and it presents vague insinuations as fact. This is desperate tabloid fodder. It is no surprise that the paper's interactions with me were marked by journalistic failures at every turn. When I first learned that the newspaper was writing this article, they refused to reveal the full claims they were planning to make against me. It wasn't until I was forced to hire the leading defamation law firm in the U.S. to write to the paper they finally revealed what they were planning on writing. Then when they did finally provide some of this information, they gave me next to no time to provide a response. It is clear why they had no interest in what I or anyone else had to say. Once I reviewed the newspaper's allegations against me, it was apparent that the newspaper was deliberately misconstruing events as nefarious, which were not, and were relying on third-party speculation to create the false, preconceived narrative about me that they believed would generate clicks. The newspaper had already written this false, salacious profile well before ever attempting to speak to me or any of the body work professionals I have worked with closely for the better part of the last decade. The newspaper made no effort to interview these key witnesses until prompted to do so by my defamation attorney because they did not want to hear what they had to say about me. I've always made a conscious effort to be considerate and respectful in all of the interactions with the community that I love so much. It is devastating for me to learn that anyone would feel I was offensive in any way. I maintain I did not act inappropriately at any point before, during, or after a professional bodywork treatment session. I would never intend to offend or hurt anyone ever. As a matter of principle, I respect when individuals come forward to report misconduct of any kind. I support a process that allows claims to be properly investigated, but for the sake of myself and my family, I cannot allow false claims to go unchallenged. I cannot be any clearer. These allegations are false and incredibly hurtful to both me and, more importantly, my family. So that's a long statement there, Sam, from Justin Tucker. And obviously, if these allegations are true, it is, of course, you cannot defend that whatsoever. It's almost like a he said, she said situation right now. We don't know. And that's what I don't want to get too far into. I'm sure more will come out as the offseason continues. More could come out today. I don't know what would happen. But at this point, we have the article. We have Justin Tucker's statement. We have some other statements we'll get to as well. But this just was not how I think anyone was expecting this Thursday to go. And here we are with a situation, as you said, Sam, where the Ravens are going to have to make a decision, and they might have to make it rather quickly depending on how this thing goes.
Oh, yeah. If there's more evidence that comes out, then this could be very damaging for Justin Tucker, at least in regards to him being a Baltimore Raven. You mentioned it. John Harbaugh has made a stance with the Deshaun Watson situation that's very similar to this one, maybe not to the magnitude of Deshaun Watson, but still the number of people that have come out have shown that there's a chance it could be true. And if it is, then Justin Tucker is definitely in a heap of trouble. And I would be surprised if he remains a Baltimore Raven, if in fact those allegations prove to be true. But I will say this, because there are certain things in Justin Tucker's, spiel that I think holds weight and should be considered in the public opinion realm, the defamation type of thing. I think a lot of people go through this. I think a lot of high profile athletes or high profile individuals go through this process once they figure out that there is a case against them that's being reported by a newspaper or television publication. They do go the route to find out what that is by going the defamation route. So nothing too disingenuous with the way Justin Tucker went about finding out that information. So I want Ravens fans to be conscious of that, as well as the fact that the NFL investigation, I doubt, honestly, unless there's a smoking gun somewhere, I doubt this leads to anything. I think the Baltimore Banner does a very good job of doing the investigation. You mentioned this came out on the 9th to tip for the Baltimore Banner. They did their due diligence. The investigation was pretty thorough. And as you mentioned, it's pretty much a he say, she say. So unless there's something out there damaging for Justin Tucker out there that maybe leads more to the side of Justin Tucker for sure being guilty of this, I would be surprised if, honestly, they find anything out that hasn't already been done. I think the only avenue where this may get messy for Justin Tucker, if this becomes a police investigation, this comes into the law enforcement realm, and maybe there's some more resources for law enforcement to use. But you mentioned the statute of limitations and all that stuff that's going into it, and the probability of this going that route is kind of low. So this, in my opinion, looks like it may be a stalemate in which, again, the Ravens still find themselves in a lose-lose situation because the public opinion with Justin Tucker, the performance of Justin Tucker this season, all of that stuff going into it, I don't see a way this ends up where everyone's happy. Of course, you'd love it if you're a Justin Tucker fan for this come up to this is just false allegations. But again, Baltimore Banner does their due diligence. I know a lot of good reporters out there. Justin Fenton was one of the reporters in this story, and I respect his expertise and all of the stuff that he does and getting those facts. So it's tough if you're a Justin Tucker fan. It's tough if you're a Ravens front office personnel, Eric DeCosta, John Harbaugh, all those guys, and his teammates. This is definitely one of those things where you wish it didn't happen, but unfortunately, it's a situation that's out there, and we'll see where it goes.
And here we are, just a very sad day for many different reasons. And again, if these allegations are true, that's something that the Ravens would obviously have to make a decision on. And of course, there's no support for that type of thing anywhere. Absolutely not. The Ravens and the NFL both released statements from a Ravens spokesperson. We are aware of the Baltimore Banner story regarding Justin Tucker. We take any allegations of this nature seriously and will continue to monitor the situations. The NFL spokesperson, Brian McCarthy, says we first became aware of the allegations from the reporter investigating the story as they were not previously shared with the NFL. We take any allegations seriously and will look into the matter. So an investigation will happen from the NFL. Whether that turns up anything remains to be seen. We don't know how that's going to unfold. But we are just so early in this process right now where it could go a million different directions. And if it is true, you obviously stand with the victims and you feel terribly for everything that has happened. The Ravens, again, have taken a stance on ever really since the Ray Rice thing happened of like, look, we're not dealing with any of this. They have put out, like they have made that a part of their identity, both on and off the field, of they bring in good, quote unquote, like good guys, not guys who have troubles or a past history. They take guys off of draft boards. That's been a part of who this Ravens organization is. And now they are dealing with this. And it's such a loaded situation that, again, we don't know enough about right now because we're talking about this now, Sam and I, just a few hours after the initial report dropped. So as things come out and as situations maybe change or don't change, we'll have more to say about it. A lot of people are looking back now to 4 years ago where there are multiple posts on social media saying, well, Justin Tucker was banned from these massage places. And, this is 2021 we're talking about. We're here in 2025, almost 4 years later. And a lot of those social media posts do line up with some of the things that are said. Now, does that mean it's true? We don't know that yet. I'm not sitting here and telling you one way or the other. But it's a situation that we're just going to have to wait and see. And as those reports maybe come out, we will figure it out. But I feel like these talking points and everything we're going to have to dive into at this situation, we're going to be talking about it for probably the whole offseason, unless the Ravens do make that decision to just cut bait immediately, which I'm not sure how that's all going to unfold for them. Coming up in the second part of the show, we're going to be diving a little bit more into the Tucker situation, but also Cam Newton getting real on the MVP conversation with his personal experience, and also had a little bit of Lamar Jackson talking there as well. So be sure to stay tuned. Lots to get to on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by Gametime. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite memories was attending concerts last year. The energy and excitement were unforgettable. Now, Gametime has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Gametime Picks. This feature filters with the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, I was looking for tickets for the Super Bowl using the Gametime app with Gametime Picks. I found amazing deals. I could even see the view from my seat before buying. The Super Deal was particularly impressive, offering great seats and unbeatable prices. Plus, the app's all-in pricing shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and supply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, spelled LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Back here on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and Sam Njoku talking about the Justin Tucker situation. Tucker in hot water right now after the Baltimore Banner released an article with allegations of him participating in inappropriate behavior at massage parlors. And Sam, to me, this whole situation with the Ravens, with everything that they have, They've put together this. We talked about it at the end of the first part of the show, where they are very clear, zero tolerance against anything like this. And as they should be, as any NFL organization should be, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. The way that Justin Tucker has made an impact on the Baltimore community and all this stuff, I just feel like it's a situation that we have to kind of take in multiple different directions of, well, what if this doesn't lead to anything? What if the NFL investigation doesn't have anything that turns up? If the Ravens keep Justin Tucker, is that appropriate or not? That's not a question that you or I can answer. That's a question only the organization can answer. There are multiple different viewpoints on the situation, multiple different feelings on what is right or what is not. But at the end of the day, the thing I want to continue to drive home here is right now, we just don't know, and speculating really doesn't help anybody.
Yeah, it doesn't help. But as you mentioned, if this comes out where, we don't get any more information, but that public opinion is still out there, unfortunately, it's going to come down to risk over benefit. I mean, the risk that associated with him possibly being accused of these heinous crimes and actually having commit those crimes, as opposed to the benefit of having the kicker who, struggled this year. So, as an organization, you have to look at it at that lens. Also, the lens you mentioned, he's been amazing for this community. I mean, I can think of a few players in one hand that have possibly had more of an impact on the community than Justin Tucker. He's just been that great for the city of Baltimore and for this organization as a whole. So you have to put all that into consideration. Again, it's an ugly mess. I mean, the Baltimore Banner did their due diligence, put that out. I wish there was more definitive, evidence one way or another, so that we are talking about this and having had this definitive conversation about what the Ravens need to do. I'm sure if there was, the Ravens would definitely have made a decision by now. But of course, it's not working like that. So unfortunately, we have to have these conversations. And this is also damaging to Justin Tucker's reputation regardless. It's just one of those things where, deserve it or not, this is the way the social society works one way or another. So yeah, this is all very, it's tough to talk about, honestly, because, having seen Justin Tucker out there, having reported for Justin Tucker in the past, interviewed him, he's a decent guy from what I've seen from him, but you don't know what goes on behind closed doors with all these guys. Also to mention, stuff like this happens across the league. I mean, I just have to be very honest with fans out there. This happens to all 32 teams. Does it come to light or not? That's the question. This came to light. Baltimore Banner did their due diligence and they came out with this stuff. It's just an unfortunate situation for Justin Tucker and the Baltimore Ravens. I am very appreciative of the Baltimore Banner. I want to make this very clear from them coming out with this because, this stuff gets swept under the rug all the time. So shout out to the Baltimore Banner for doing their due diligence for the victims that may have been active in this heinous crime that Justin Tucker may or may not have committed. Again, what the Ravens do, nobody knows. But if it comes out that it's true, Tucker's gone. I mean, just no way about it. He has to go. If it's not true, it's up to the Ravens to decide whether or not public opinion is more important than body of work on the football field. Now, we've seen this happen before with other players, as far as accusations go. And, because their body of work was so excellent, you kind of see these teams sweep things under the rug. The Ravens are not one of those teams. I'm telling you, if this comes out where it's even a slight chance that Justin Tucker committed this, I don't see how you keep him.
And again, the article, if you want to read more, and there's so much in it that you can look at there, go to the Baltimore Banner, go read the article, and the stuff that's discussed in that article, pretty heinous stuff. So we don't know. We wanted to present the facts here just so that, for the listeners and watchers of the show, every part of it, from Tucker's statement to the article to the Ravens statement, there are so many different parts, so many different viewpoints of this situation. So it's a tough thing to talk about for sure. It's not easy to talk about something like this, especially when, the things being described in it are so disgusting. But we're going to have to wait and see how it all unfolds there. Now, moving away from that, kind of having that discussion, splitting up, now getting into some football conversation about the Ravens. Offseason still in full swing. Cam Newton had some interesting comments. Cam is obviously an MVP, and he has a bunch of different opinions. At least he presented those opinions on ESPN about Super Bowl versus MVP. And I think it's a really interesting conversation because he was asked, Super Bowl, right? Would you trade that for your MVP? But the question was about an appearance, right? Now, championship appearance, I think that's very different because an appearance, but you lose, you're like, okay, well, MVP, that sounds pretty nice. I'm not getting a ring anyway. Like, might as well get the MVP. But championship is a little bit of a different conversation. So, Sam, what do you think of Cam's comments? Because I know for Lamar, I think everybody's pretty confident that he would exchange all three, potentially three of his MVPs for a Super Bowl championship if he could.
Yeah, I think Lamar's case is a little different. I try and put everyone in their own little box when I talk about this, because it's definitely a situation in which, you know, it can go either way. In Cam Newton's case, I agree with him. I mean, he was a dominant player for maybe 2 or 3 years where he was widely considered to be the best player in the National Football League. He's had some up and down years over his career, but all in all, I think he's a phenomenal player. He had the Super Bowl appearance. So in his case, I wouldn't trade it. I think him having that MVP solidifies in his mind and in the minds of others that he's one of the greatest to ever do it. And that's what the MVP award is, really. That year, who was the best player in the league? Who was the most valuable player to their team in all of football? And in that year, it was Cam Newton. So in his regard, yes, I get it. Lamar Jackson, I know he says he would for sure throw away all those MVPs for a Super Bowl championship. And I get that. I think for him, his status is different from Cam Newton's. Cam Newton is a great player. Lamar Jackson has a chance to be one of the greatest of all time. And I think that puts things in a little bit more perspective for Lamar, because Lamar, you need those MVP awards as well as those championships to really solidify you as the greatest of all time. I think if he gets a Super Bowl ring accompanied with these 2 or perhaps even 3 MVP awards, he's in that top 10 conversation automatically of all time. I mean, all time. I mean, that's how great he's been through his first few years in the National Football League. So maybe he wants to throw away those MVP awards because maybe he knows he can get it any year he wants to. I mean, he's widely considered to be the best player in football, in my opinion. So yeah, throw those awards away, get another shot at it in 2026 and get that championship. Yeah, I get it. But as far as for most players, and Cam Newton made this point very clear, Nick Foles, Super Bowl champion quarterback, Trent Dilfer, Baltimore's own Super Bowl champion quarterback. So you have these guys that have had Super Bowl championships. Have they been the best player on their team? Not really. Would they trade that championship away for MVP awards? No, because they know they have no shot at ever getting that. So I think Cam Newton made a lot of sense in his regard. I think MVP awards hold weight. I know a lot of people talk about championships, and that's all good and fancy, but you need that MVP award as well to solidify yourself as one of the greatest to ever do it. So I don't blame Cam Newton for tossing that out. And remember, Super Bowl appearance, not championship. So Cam Newton has that as well. So he, more than most people, have that understanding about what each of those means. No one talks about who makes their appearance. They talk about who wins the championship and who's the MVP. So I agree with Cam in that note.
Yeah, and I think Cam had also another interesting point, because there's another conversation that happened about the common theme here, Sam, is in the AFC. You got all the top quarterbacks in the league, and they're all just kind of mishmashed in there. And then the NFC is kind of like, okay, kind of up for grabs about who's even the best quarterback in that conference in general. But you got Mahomes, Lamar, Burrow, Allen, like all these good guys. And so Cam made a point of like, okay, well, if you put Jalen Hurts or Philly in the AFC, would they have gone to the Super Bowl as many times, right? Is it these game changers Cam is talking about? They all play in the AFC. So he said when we're talking about Mahomes versus Allen or Allen versus Lamar, those are different conversations than Jalen Hurts versus Jared Goff or Jaden Daniels versus Jalen Hurts. Like, it's a different stratosphere. All the game changers are in the AFC. And is it a real question to ask if you put these NFC teams in the AFC? Is that why we're seeing the Chiefs win so many times? Because the Chiefs have to go through a gauntlet every year. And then they get to the NFC team with a Super Bowl and they're like, oh, okay. Like, this is cool. This is easy.
If the Ravens were in the NFC, they'd be in the championship every year. I mean, it's night and day. You mentioned it. Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, C.J. Stroud coming into his own, Justin Herbert still doing this thing over there. So, I mean, there's so many great quarterbacks in the AFC compared to the NFC. It's not even funny. I mean, shout out to the Philadelphia Eagles. They have a great dominant front four. Their running back, Saquon Barkley, is probably going to win Offensive Player of the Year. It's night and day. It's not even a question. The Eagles had a easy road to the championship. They dropped 55 points in the conference championship against the Commanders, who many agree probably shouldn't have even made it that far. So it's not even, I mean, look at what Josh Allen had to go through. He had to go through Lamar Jackson. He had to go through, who did they play in the 7th seed? They went against the Broncos, which isn't much. Knicks is okay, but having to go to Lamar Jackson and then Patrick Mahomes in Arrowhead is vastly different from having a home playoff game against the Washington Commanders, who didn't even win their division in the conference championship. So, yeah, I agree with Cam 100%. It's night and day. I think you need to Super Bowl appearances don't mean as much, especially if you're in the NFC. But having an MVP award definitely shows that you're the best of the best. And to accumulate those in multiple years means you're one of the greatest to ever do it.
I think the AFC teams having to go from Tom Brady and the Patriots to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs without any break in between. It's just it's a cruel joke.
It's unfair.
Two of the ultimate dynasties sports have ever seen in a span of 20 years. Just unbelievable. And honestly makes the Ravens winning a Super Bowl in that span back in 2012 even more impressive, because they had to go knock off those Patriots in the AFC Championship game in order to do that. But you know who the quarterback they played the round before was Peyton Manning in that super team Denver Broncos, who they were able to beat into overtime. So again, AFC versus NFC, we all know the AFC is the stronger conference. It's a quarterback-driven league, and that is why the AFC has that title over the NFC. Coming up in the final part of the show, we're diving into who could stay and who could go. Not the only time we'll have this conversation, but wanted to do it early because I know perceptions will change on some of these players as the offseason goes on before free agency starts. Stay tuned, plenty to get to on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by PrizePicks. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to make it even more exciting than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions of winnings awarded, PrizePicks makes it fun and simple to get in on the action. Here's how it works. You pick more or less on at least two players' projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. PrizePicks even has a free pick for the big game, where Patrick Mahomes only needs to throw 1 yard to win. Pair that with one more correct pick, and you're cashing out. This week, I'm looking on the board, selecting more for Travis Kelce on receiving yards and more for Patrick Mahomes passing yardage. What I love most, fast and safe withdrawals. When I win, my cash is in my account in as little as 15 minutes. Check out the promos tab to tail any of the super sweet Millie winners big game lineups. If you tail a lineup to go sleep at 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Let's go LOCKEDONNFL for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks for your game. Back here on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and Sam Njoku talking Ravens football with you. And Sam, it's a game I play every year, but I always like to kind of gauge the market a little bit on the Ravens free agency class, who stays, who goes. Now, this is a bit different because, I mean, last year we were talking about like all these key contributors, and it felt like you went down that list. You're like, man, all these guys are free agents, like same year. But now this year, you have a couple of big namers. And we talked about this, you and I, last week, but it's not the list that we have seen in recent seasons. So let's start off with Ronnie Stanley. We had some of these convos, you and I, even before the season ended, about Ronnie and kind of how he was playing and chopping off the extra year on that deal. I think Ronnie did earn himself some money on the market this year, just because when he stayed healthy and his play was not bad. But the Ravens might want to go in the direction of taking a tackle in the draft and having your two bookends on rookie contracts. Do you feel like Ronnie's an option to come back, or do you think that it's finally time for Baltimore to move on?
I think they might be moving on. I mean, we haven't heard of any contract negotiations. In fact, I think I heard a report a day or two ago saying that the Ravens haven't engaged Ronnie Stanley in any contract talks as of now. So he's likely going to be able to test that open market. So I don't think he comes back. I think the Ravens have always had the idea of having, Rosengarten shift from right tackle to left tackle eventually. Had to be this year, next year. But I think Rosengarten showed enough, especially in those pivotal games against the Steelers. He held T.J. Watt pretty firm, although he had some help with some chips by the tight ends and running backs. But for the most part, Rosengarten was holding his own against one of the premier pass rushers in all of football. So I think they make that move to left tackle. I think Ronnie Stanley is a great left tackle. I think he proved that that injury was really the cause for him to slack off a little bit in terms of production. I think he's going to find a lot of money elsewhere. A lot of teams are looking for left tackle who knows how to protect the blind side, especially with a quarterback who's a dual threat. So there's a lot of teams who are adopting that dual threat quarterback personality back there. So he's going to have some open market money come his way. And I think the Ravens may notice that he's probably priced himself out of that. So I think Ronnie Stanley's probably played his last snap in Baltimore.
Especially as the offensive tackle market and offensive line market has developed over recent seasons. I mean, we saw Robert Hunt get $100 million from Carolina, and Damian Lewis, I think he got 63, 66, whatever that number was. Premium tackles, premium offensive linemen are so in demand. Every team wants them. That's why it's almost impossible to trade for offensive linemen, because every team needs offensive linemen. Now, his fellow offensive line mate, Patrick McCary, is also hitting the market. He's a super versatile offensive lineman. We saw him thrust into the guard role this season. Definitely an up and down year for him as a starter. He stayed healthy, but I thought the play declined a little bit based off what we were used to with Patrick. Now, I think as a super sixth offensive lineman, I would love him back in Baltimore on a team-friendly deal. As a starter, I'm not loving that conversation as much, but maybe McCary wants to be a starter after getting a taste of that. Maybe that's what ends up pushing him away. So do you feel like the pairing is still worth it for both sides, or do you think that maybe there's going to be a difference in role?
I think that if the Ravens bring him back, it's not going to be as a starter. I think the Ravens have made that decision. I think we heard from Steve Rashod and both John Harbaugh that they're going to be taking a very aggressive approach to the line on both the offensive, defensive end side of it. So I think that Patrick McCary, if he comes back, if he's not able to get that, attraction from other teams looking for a starter, he could be brought back as the six guys you said to kind of swing in case of injury. But I don't think the Ravens will be doing themselves any favors by bringing him back as a starter. I think the Ravens have an idea where they're going to go with this. I think Voorhees showed some flashes of brilliance, especially in that Week 18 contest against the Browns. I think whether you like it or not, Daniel Filete is going to be firmly playing at that right guard spot. So I think Patrick McCary probably looks elsewhere. Whether or not he gets the money or opportunity he's looking for remains to be seen. But if he's not able to get that opportunity, I would not be surprised if the Ravens bring him back. I just don't see him as a starter in 2025.
Yeah, I hear you. I think he was perfect in that role, and just circumstances forced him into the role that he had. So we'll see how that works out. Now, you and I talked about Brandon Stevens last week, and I don't think either of our stances have changed on this one much, but I think we're both in agreement that Stevens is probably on the way out. I think that he's going to demand some level of a contract, much less than what he was going to get at the end of last season, but I just feel like the Ravens definitely need to upgrade there. You can't have someone get picked on on a championship contending team. There's a clear weakness. We know the player Stevens can be, but you can't risk that and give him serious playing time if what we saw in 2023 was a flash in the pan. You still there?
I'm there. Can you see me?
Yeah. No. I'm meaning like, are you still there with Brandon Stevens? Are you still there with Brandon Stevens?
Stevens is gone. I think he is not going to be playing in 2025 with the Baltimore Ravens. So many chances for the Ravens to get something going. I think a lot of things that the Ravens are going to be doing this year is going to be with that secondary. I think Stevens obviously is out of there, and I think they're going to try and bring in another safety or two to try and have Kyle Hamilton in that line of scrimmage that like they previously had. I think the interceptions, the turnovers, the lack thereof last year is probably due to the fact that they didn't have Kyle Hamilton in the midst of that second level of the defense to kind of shrink passing windows for these opposing quarterbacks. So the Ravens are going to be doing a lot of thinking as far as who they bring in that safety realm. They didn't have a lot of success with the safeties they brought in last year with Eddie Jackson and in previous years with Marcus Williams. So I don't expect them to make the same mistakes again, but we'll see. We know John Harbaugh likes a certain type of safety. I'm sure they'll go after that type of safety. But as far as Brandon Stevens goes, he's gone. There's just no way they bring him back. I don't care if it's for pennies on the dollar. Maybe as a sixth cornerback, as a backup corner, if they don't get any attention, if Stevens doesn't get any attention in the open market. But as far as being a starter for the Ravens, that ship has sailed.
I also feel like it almost feels like a big four, Sam. And that last guy is Patrick Ricard, who the Ravens he's meant a ton to that offense. He said that he wants to retire as a member of the Ravens. He's made that very clear and wants to help Lamar and all those guys win a championship. There's no reason for the Ravens to move away from what they're doing. I don't think there's any reason to move away from Pat. I feel like they should grant him his wish and bring him back. What do you think about that?
Oh, he's coming back. If he doesn't come back, I'm done. I will not watch film anymore because that means they're not taking it seriously. Patrick Ricard is just such a – the stats don't show it, obviously, because you don't see the pancakes. You don't see what he does to the opposing defenses when they have him in motion. All of that stuff isn't in the stat sheet. But, man, he is such an important part of this team. It's going to be very interesting the contract he gets because there aren't a lot of teams in the National Football League that really utilize the fullback the way the Ravens do. I think I mentioned this last week. Maybe the Philadelphia Eagles, with the way they're running the football with Saquon Barkley, could probably use another fullback over there to try and, create some more running lanes for Saquon. But I don't think Saquon really runs that well with the fullback. I just think this is the perfect situation for the Ravens and Patrick Carr to be in. So fully expect him to get extended, get a new contract, all of that good stuff. How much depends on the negotiations. But yeah, if he's not back in Baltimore next year, I am not a happy camper.
I would be shocked if that were to be the case. So those are the big four. There are obviously others such as a Tylan Wallace, a Chris Board, Ben Cleveland, who I think we can all say goodbye to. I don't think Ben's coming back. I think he wants an opportunity, and I think he knows he's not going to get it in Baltimore. So again, just not as deep of a class this year, which I think makes the Ravens offseason interesting, where they can add guys instead of having to replace guys. I think that's the difference we're going to see from last offseason compared to this one. But Sam, I appreciate your time as always. Thank you for hopping on, talking Ravens with me. Of course, tell people where they can find you and what you're working on. I know the offseason's in full swing mode right now. For agency, though, it's almost a month away.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait for it. You can find me on Twitter at Ravens Talk Podcast, also on Instagram at Ravens Talk Podcast. You can also find me on YouTube at Ravens Talk Podcast. Co-host of the AFC North Roundtable. We'll be having the other three teams. We'll be talking about the offseason as well. Again, things ready as the draft approaches, combine, all of that good stuff. And you'll find my podcast here every now and then talking about key events. I think the Justin Tucker situation probably warrants an episode, so probably expect that in the next day or so as we dive in to the facts as well that we did on here and talk about what could be possibly next as the Justin Tucker and Baltimore Ravens relationship kind of takes ahead. But that's pretty much it.
Sam knows the stuff. Be sure to check out everywhere he is. Subscribe to his work. Ravens content. Sam is one of the best in the business. So, Sam, appreciate you as always. And thank you to everybody who watched and listened to Locked On Ravens today. We'll be back here soon talking more Ravens football. So be sure on the way out, hit that like and subscribe button in video form and follow along in audio form. I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.